The Colts player whose stock rose the most over the weekend is someone who didn't even play. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Jake Arthur of horseshoehuddle.com. I am your local credentialed media member from the site, bringing you the latest from the team facility and the stadium on game days. On today's show, got kind of a good one for you, I think. We're going to discuss the latest in the Jonathan Taylor saga. Physically, nothing has really changed, but we got a little bit of an update, I guess you could say, on Sunday that maybe changes things a little bit. We're going to explain why his arrow may be actually be pointing up despite not playing. We'll also go over some updates and some finds from the film, both on offense and defense, after rewatching the game. Also, now that we've heard from some of the players and coaches in the days following the game. So we'll get into that here in a minute. But first, the Colts, of course, made some minor tweaks to the practice squad on Tuesday. Couple notable moves, really. First one, they brought in center Jack Anderson, running back Tyler Goodson, and tight end Jordan Murray. Now, that's a different Jordan Murray than the offensive tackle that's been around the team for the last couple of years. To make room for those guys, they cut running back Jason Huntley, tight end Johnny Lumpkin, and wide receiver Mike Summertime Strawn. Man, if this is the last chapter for Strawn and the Colts, best of luck to you. Thanks for the memories during training camp. You always made things exciting those last couple of years. But I digress. So probably the most notable addition in this group is Jack Anderson. As we've mentioned ad nauseum, really, the offensive line depth for the Colts behind the starters, really nobody had any NFL snaps on offense. Josh Sills did get some in a brief relief of Quentin Nelson on Sunday. But Anderson has actually started 3 games, has seen action in 14 games throughout his NFL career. So the Colts get a little bit of experience depth on the interior there. I like that move. It's decent. Tyler Goodson, I don't know a ton about him, but I believe he's an adequate replacement for Huntley if they wind up needing to bring someone up. I've heard his name before, so he's at least a notable player. So, looking at this Jonathan Taylor thing. So locally here, it's really not been news that this seems like more of a hold-in. Like Taylor's ankle probably isn't as much of a mess as it's been reported as, and that he could probably pass a physical. It's even been reported that the Colts felt that at one point, even though they've publicly refuted it. But Adam Schefter came out on Sunday morning and basically just said that Jonathan could pass a physical now if he needed to, and that I guess he will be doing it soon. And that he's also planning to play as early as week 5. As he's on the PUP list, he's got to miss those first 4 games. So it's the last part there that is noteworthy for me. Obviously, he could probably pass the physical. It's been forever since that ankle procedure. But the fact that Taylor himself is apparently planning to play by week 5, we didn't know Taylor's intentions, really. As far as we knew, he didn't want to be around the Colts. He doesn't want to play for him. He wants traded. But really, he just does not have much leverage unless he's going to come back and play and look like himself. And apparently that is reportedly the plan here. And I think that's a good idea for him. The Colts, I mean, they haven't wanted to re-sign him right now. But if he comes back and looks good, maybe they can come to the table. And even if the relationship is done for Taylor, if he comes out and shows that he is Jonathan Taylor, then okay, other teams can see that and then may want to make a pricier offer to the Colts to actually get his services. So any way for Taylor to get what he wants, either monetarily from the Colts or to go to another team and get a new deal, he's got to show up and play first. And it sounds like that is the plan. So it's going to be a few weeks. Let's say that the Colts, let's say it's an extra week for him because he's got to get his legs under him. The next 4 opponents for the Colts, you look at it: Houston, Baltimore, the Rams, and the Titans. They are only giving up 84 yards per game so far through the first game. Only one of those teams gave up over 100 yards. So it still might be tough for the Colts running the ball. And so if Taylor's able to come back, week 5, week 6, whatever, I think it would be pretty welcome. So it's no secret one of the biggest thumbs down from Sunday's loss to the Jaguars was the run game. Even with Anthony Richardson running the ball, in totality, it was not good. 26 carries for 65 yards as a team, 1 touchdown. That's 2.5 yards per carry. So not great. If you take Richardson's stats out of it, 10 carries for 40 yards, it's rough. 16 carries for 25 yards, which is 1.6 yard per carry. Deion Jackson, who far and away led the group, 13 carries. I think it was 14 yards and 1.1 yard per carry. He also lost 2 fumbles. He's easily gotten the most of the flack after that one, and rightfully so. I mean, he coughed up the ball twice. He couldn't really find room to run. But he had a couple decent plays that were called back due to injury, so it's not great. I even saw a stat from Aaron Schatz, formerly of Football Outsiders. Jackson's DYAR was like really historically low for Colts running backs. So not great company. It's been a while since apparently there's been a performance that rough for the Colts at running back. So here's the thing. Jonathan Taylor, you could say, yes, hurry, get back. And then some people say, well, Zach Moss will probably be back next week, which is true. But Evan Hull, who himself could potentially be an upgrade over Deion Jackson, if that's what you're looking for, he's got a knee injury now and is apparently going to miss a little bit of time. So you gain Moss, you lose Hull, you still got Jackson there. You're still without Taylor until week 5, week 6, whenever he's able to actually come back. So where does that really leave you? I think a lot of people are saying, okay, at first I was going to let these guys play it out, but they really need to bring in an outside running back. It's not great out there. I'm curious if the Colts want to do that. They obviously made the contract offer to Kareem Hunt back like a month ago. But you look out there, there's Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Darrell Henderson, James Robinson. That's some of the notable guys on there. I think if the Colts want to bring someone else in, it needs to be a veteran who's been there and done that. Like, you're probably really only going to get Zach Moss types at this point. Just elevating a young guy from the practice squad or something's probably not going to cut it. Even though perhaps they know your system a little better, I don't know. Because I think that's part of the whole issue also is a lot of these guys on the offense are still from Frank Reich's tutelage in his system, his run schemes, and Shane Steichen's run schemes, with Tony Sperano Jr. as well. It's just a bit different. So they've got to get used to this. It's going to take a while. There's going to be growing pains. I mean, everyone was expecting growing pains from just like Anthony Richardson, but the run game too, even veterans. Like, these guys have to learn what and they already know what they're doing as in terms of like studying it in the playbook, but they have to put it on the field in real game scenarios now. So that's going to take a little bit of time. I don't know. They may want to bring in a veteran. I think it makes sense. Even pairing this veteran into the group with Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, if Taylor does in fact come back, that may be a good way for everybody to not get too run down. I don't know. It's a tough situation, certainly, but at the end of the day, I think with how poorly the Colts performed in the run game on Sunday, and then they lose Evan Hull for however long, and one guy they had confidence in, Deion Jackson, performing pretty poorly, it just makes Jonathan Taylor's star shine a little bit more, I think. We'll see how that goes. The Colts probably would really like to get him back in a hurry. So coming up here in a minute, I'm going to mention, after I rewatch the game, some of the things that really stood out to me on offense. But first, let's talk about fantasy. Let's talk about FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's a great deal, honestly. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And every dayers, you know the deal. If you've been with us through last season, you know what's coming up the rest of this week. Thursday, Crossover Thursday, presented by PrizePicks. We'll be chatting with the fellas from Locked On Texans. That's always a good show. So keep hold there. You know, we'll also bring all these little news and notes, these old transactions and everything's injury reports. Practice is coming up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'll have every little detail for you that you could even want coming up soon. So let's chat offense again. So just rewatching the game, you look at Anthony Richardson, and I did call his performance a mixed bag after the game, and I still think that's true. But I think there's plenty of positive coming from that. You know, I saw some people out there reacting to things like people who just have like such extreme snap reactions. We knew things were not going to just be like super smooth for Richardson right away. His anticipation, everything is not a polished product yet. Like he's still got to work on it. So there were a couple missed opportunities out there. Like I think of a third down throw to Kylan Granson that was a little behind him. That caused them to have to punt the ball away. You know, there was a high ball to Drew Ogletree. Like those things will get ironed out with further reps and everything. So overall, I came away relatively impressed with Richardson. And if you caught our post-game show, I said after the game, you know, it's not exciting to have to go against zone defense and Richardson's having to do a lot of checkdowns and throwing the short balls. But that's an area of his game that needed the most work. So honestly, to have that thrown at him week one, I don't hate it. Like, again, it's not exciting and it's not the type of offense the Colts want to play, but you know, he didn't really force a lot of terrible throws. He didn't force a lot of stuff into traffic. He did have the interception, but that was oddly enough, when he's inaccurate, he tends to go high. That throw was just a little too low. It looked like it could have been on target on the sideline. And, you know, at the very least, if he would have got it a foot or two higher, it's probably not intercepted. And, it, you know, at worst is an incompletion out of bounds. So that performance, you know, it took note across the NFL. He's actually nominated for Offensive Rookie of the Week. So you guys can go actually, if you want to, go ahead and vote from there. But otherwise, there was a couple players in the passing game that I really came away impressed with. Josh Downs, he had, I think, 3 catches for 30 yards. That was a good game for him. And so he's going to be put in a position as slot receiver where he's going to have to make a lot of his own decisions. Like he's a rookie, of course. But that 20-yard play that he hooked up with Richardson down near the red zone, that was an option route where he really baited and set up the defender to an outside route and cut inside. And actually asked Shane Steichen about that on Monday. You know, that takes a lot of trust between quarterback and receiver, and just how much do they work on that. And Steichen was really impressed with that as well. Not only Downs' decision-making and his ability to sell that outside move, but for Richardson to trust it and know that Downs was going to go there as well. So those rookies, they've got something going on. That's really good to see. Kylan Granson, he's pretty much tight end 1, not only until Jelani Woods gets back, but until Woods establishes himself all over again. And he really hasn't even done that yet because we all assumed that would happen, but he missed a great deal of the offseason. So Kylan Granson, he's the guy among tight ends in the passing game. And really, if you forecast the first several weeks after Michael Pittman, he might be the second or third target overall. You probably look at Richardson, Josh Downs, and Kylan Granson, or Michael Pittman Jr., with Downs and Granson, and that's probably the top 3 pass catchers. And Granson has responded really well. You know, I think any gripe anyone had about him in his first 2 years was, he has the drops, which was mostly an issue as a rookie. It wasn't as bad last year, but he barely ever drops it anymore. Like he's got some pretty sure hands, and he can make tough catches. He's able to go up high and get it. We've seen that in practice. We've seen that in games. So Richardson seems really comfortable with Granson, and I think it's only going to get better from here because Granson can be used as a mismatch. Like if he's matched up against slower linebackers or even safeties, the guy gets separation. He was statistically one of the best separators at tight end in the NFL last year, and there's no reason for that to change now. Looking at the offensive line, they kind of got some flack as well. There were some low lights, but I didn't think it was that bad. Like in pass protection, I thought it went pretty well. There were some things in the run game to get cleaned up. Again, I mentioned it in the first segment talking about run scheme and the running backs having to, meet the offensive line and learn how things are going to go. So that's a work in progress. I thought it was generally fine. There was nothing that really caused me alarm moving forward. So I'm fine there. But Bernhard Raimann is kind of the main point I'm coming along to. I thought Raimann stood out really well. Every time I looked at him specifically, I thought he had good leverage and did a good job of guiding defenders outside of the arc. So I thought he did really well. Run game too. He got shouted out from Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter this week. So his arrow continues to point up as well. He's not Anthony Costanzo yet, but this guy is definitely an adequate starting left tackle at this point. And at this point, we've seen enough body of work to where I don't think it's something like where it's still up in the air. Like I think at this point we could be relatively confident that he's a solid player. So thumbs up there. My last note, running back, we saw they get really, really shallow. I think tight end is kind of the same thing right now. After Drew Ogletree suffered a concussion and had to leave the game, you never know how long that'll keep him out. He could clear the protocol and be back this week against the Texans. It could take him a couple weeks. We don't know. So that basically left the Colts down to Mo Alley-Cox and Kylan Granson as the only active tight ends in the game. Will Mallory was a healthy scratch, so he's an option, of course. Jelani Woods is on IR, is still going to be out another few weeks. So what do you do about that? Do you look at your own practice squad? I mentioned they had just brought in this Jordan Murray, but I don't know. This is a tough one because again, you're waiting on a guy to get off an injured list with Jelani Woods. It's tough because Mo Alley-Cox, would he have made the roster if not for Woods going on IR? How much do they want to really trust him there? Looking at the list of free agents, I don't think it's something they have to do. But a decent player that's out there is Dan Arnold. It's another good pass catching tight end, but I mean, shoot, Will Mallory's unproven. He hasn't played yet. If you're down to Kylan Granson and Mo Alley-Cox, Drew Ogletree, again, we don't know how long he's out. Jelani Woods, he'll be out another few weeks at least. It could make some sense to bring in a guy who, can play in a hurry. When he went to Arizona, I think he contributed pretty early as soon as he got there. Same thing with Jacksonville. When Jacksonville obtained him, he was able to contribute pretty quickly. So that's a guy, seems to be smart and can pick things up quickly. So I don't know, just in terms of limited depth because of injuries and having some inexperienced guys in there, it's probably not the worst idea to bring in someone like Dan Arnold. But again, the urgency meter, I don't think, is screaming by any means. But coming up in a minute, we will now discuss the defense, some of the things that stuck out on when rewatching the film. But first, let's chat about our pals over at PrizePicks. Testing my skills on PrizePicks this football season is really the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, so let's discuss defense. So I thought it was notable when Shane Steichen came out for his Monday conference call. One of the first things he did was commend the defense and the job that they did, and he pointed out DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, and Shaquille Leonard, which I thought those guys definitely stood out as well. DeForest Buckner had an all-pro type of game, was very disruptive, and it seemed like he was actually on a pitch count, at least early in the game. He had that forearm injury that he had late in the week, and he wasn't in there in as many situations as you probably thought. So in somewhat limited action, DeForest Buckner had a huge game. He was living in the backfield, had a couple, a tackle for loss, a sack, had the play where he caused the fumble against Trevor Lawrence. And then after another fumble, he ultimately scooped it up and scored the touchdown. So don't be surprised if that guy is going to be nominated or among the nominees for AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Zaire Franklin, again, 18 tackles. That's one of the biggest performances we've seen since Shaquille Leonard had 18 tackles back in his rookie year. The guy is just really, really on it. He's flying around. I had mentioned after the game, a guy like Kenny Moore, just earning like a master's degree in the defense and the former defense with Matt Eberflus. And honestly, after Zaire Franklin had kind of some speed bumps at the beginning of last season when Gus Bradley's defense was first starting up, I'm really starting to think Zaire's getting a master's degree in Gus Bradley's scheme. Like, this guy looks comfortable, confident. He shoots the gaps. He flies around. This guy knows what he's doing. He's really becoming a star. Actually, Zach just wrote about that this week, about Zaire's film and how he is becoming a star in this defense. So after this, go ahead to horseshoehuddle.com and check out Zach's piece on that. Shaquille Leonard, I think it was eight tackles as well. Big check mark for him, getting to just have full contact, be in a full game. Just get those things out of the way, not have to worry about it anymore. He, again, sniffed out things in the backfield, made a couple big plays, was really impressed by him, being able to come back and just show that he still can be that guy. Now, is he 100% the maniac? I don't think so yet. Like, I think it looks like he's getting there himself. He even said that last week. Like, it looks like he's getting closer. So that's a big positive for the Colts. Their other starting linebacker, EJ Speed, stud. Like, he had a big game. He recovered a fumble. I think it was out of bounds, but he was right there to make the play, forced the fumble too, I believe, or he was at least right there to kind of influence it. Had a couple big plays right at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. Really impressed by him. The coaches love him as well. So as far as having three linebackers, like, the Colts have got to have one of the best linebacking groups in the whole league. Like, and not just because of the weight that Shaquille Leonard carries, but Zaire Franklin is becoming a real, real stud. EJ Speed, he doesn't play as many snaps, but that guy makes a big impact as well. And then another guy that really stood out was Kwity Paye. For those of you who don't, just kind of follow the ball and you don't necessarily watch, the linemen and everything, it can be easy for those guys to, get overlooked because they don't necessarily stuff the stat sheet. And Kwity actually did have a decent game in that regard too. He did have 4 tackles. He had a sack. Zach actually tweeted a video of the sack. It came on a bull rush. It was a really nice play. And then 2 tackles for loss and another quarterback hit. So he had a really active day as well. Now that guy is fully healthy, like, he is ferocious. He's strong. He's explosive. He's getting better all the time with his pass rush moves and his ability to disengage from blocks. So if you're looking for a starting defensive end to really take over and do some nice things, it looks like Kwity might finally become that alpha pass rusher that they've been missing, like, really since Robert Mathis retired. On that note, I thought Samson Ebukam did some nice things as well. During the game, maybe he didn't get mentioned as much, but when I rewatched, I saw him really getting after it as well. And his summer was pretty quiet too. He missed a couple weeks with a hamstring. And so when he got back out there on the practice field, he was just kind of a guy. He just kind of melted into the abyss, I guess. But I thought he stood out and did some really nice things against the Jaguars. And then just in general, the defense did have some things that happened. Early in the game, there was Calvin Ridley and all that stuff. But I thought the defense did a really nice job overall. And what really stood out, my very first takeaway when rewatching was like, my God, Trevor Lawrence is that dude. Like, Trevor Lawrence is good. He does some things out there that you just do not see other guys do. Like, very Andrew Luck-esque in the way that he's able to just like pull something out of the air. Like, improbable things just happen when this dude's got the ball. He's rolling across his body and makes two really good plays throwing across his body that were incredibly accurate. He has the play to Calvin Ridley that causes, I think it was Kenny Moore and Dallas Flowers to collide, right in between them to Calvin Ridley. Like, the dude just has an uncanny ability to make plays. He's got a special arm. And as we all know, when you face quarterbacks like that, you just kind of, what can you do? Those plays are going to happen. There's no way to defend it, really. Just put yourself in good position. And even on some of the big plays and like touchdowns that the Colts gave up, I thought guys were in good position. Maybe not the first Calvin Ridley one where it was just alone in the back of the end zone, but the defenders put themselves in really good spots. And sometimes, no matter what you do, the people you're playing on the other side of the ball are just incredibly talented. So that was my main takeaway from rewatching the game. I know Zach's going to have some good stuff for you guys coming up as well. And again, remember, Crossover Thursdays coming up. We'll be chatting with the guys from Locked On Texans, so that'll be good. I'm pretty eager to learn more about the Texans now with CJ Stroud under center, D'Amico Ryans. There's a lot to like there, so I'm pretty eager for us to learn more. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter /X. Also, subscribe to Locked On Colts on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love your ratings and reviews as well, because as you know, that helps us move up the charts. And with that, we will see you fine folks bright and early tomorrow